Welcome to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Cauley from Castle Rock PD in Colorado. He has been the chief of police there since 2012, but he's actually been in this career for over 40 years. He is a nationally recognized speaker and presenter on organizational culture. He's implemented his own policing philosophy called One by One, which I'm really excited to kind of jump into. And he speaks about the importance of culture and creating a new path for modern policing. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. Welcome to the show, Chief Cauley. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, you're welcome. I was reading the bio and I was like, whoa, no pressure. Like you are a very experienced speaker. I'm really looking forward to this. The first thing that kind of popped into my head when I was reading through the bio is kind of a burning question that I think a lot of people have is what is the key to creating a healthy culture within an organization?
Really, it's about the focus on people. And, that's really what we focus on at Castle Rock. And it's really the basis and foundation to our one by one policing philosophy. But when it comes down to it, we are in a people business. That's what we do. And I think when we focus on our team members and provide them what they need to thrive, and then reinforce that, continue to reinforce those things, then you are able to create a culture within the organization that is sustainable and that is not only beneficial for your team members, but then beneficial for those that you're serving in the community, which is really, why we're here, right? Is to ensure that we are creating, safe spaces and safe environments for our community and for our team members.
Yeah. You've been in this career a long time. We were kind of talking offline about how you're like, wow, I can't believe that it's been 4 decades. You blink and here we are. I've heard a lot of people talk about how you learn from those who do things really well, and then you also can learn from learn from people or situations that weren't very great. Do you feel like you kind of came to this understanding that it's about the people and how to lead effectively and create a healthy culture from past experiences? Was it people who did it really well, or people who didn't do it very well, or a combination of both?
It is a combination of both. I truly believe that. But I do think that, when I started in policing, over 40 years ago, it was a different world, and it was a different world as it relates to leadership,
Yeah.
as far as what was thought as, the best practices related to leadership. And and I don't think, it's not to blame anybody. It's just that back then, that's kind of how the world operated, and that's how our profession operated. And I think that over the years, I just noticed that, maybe that's not the best thing for people, for police officers or professional staff or people that operated in our organization. And I did learn some things. It's like, that's not really a good way to do it. We need to really focus and on the people part of things. And then when I started doing that, I saw the benefits to it, and I started learning about it. And then, fast forward to where we are today, it is absolutely something I truly believe in. But yes, it took a long time. And I did learn from people too that did things very well, and they were people focused. It's just that it wasn't very widespread back then, and it really wasn't something that you learned in leadership classes. Mainly, it was about command and control, accountability and things like that that still have to hold true today. But when you focus on just those things and you kind of discount the people part, I think that you're doing your team members a disservice and the community a disservice.
Yeah. I appreciate that you said it's not in light of blaming anyone. I think that our perspectives are based on our preconditioning, our past experiences, the people that we learned from, and you don't know what you don't know sometimes, and I think that when you do know, then it's an obligation to do better, right? And so I feel like now we're in a space where at least there's a conversation and we have technology now that we can also spread that conversation and that awareness around. And, when I started in this wellness space 9 years ago, things were so different even then, which is such a short period of time. We've come so far in the progress of conversation and wellness and how can we improve?
Yes, and I think that if you look at our profession, you know, 30, 40 years ago, it was, or even 20, and sometimes even today, it's very much built on command and control. And there are, in our profession, there are times we have to be in the command and control mode. If we're working a critical incident, then it's about directing people, having command and control to ensure everyone's safe during that incident. But I think in our profession, what where maybe we missed the mark was that leaders would lead with command and control styles all the time, 100% of the time, when really we only need to do it, when it's appropriate, and that might only be 20 or 25% of the time or less. So I think that as we've learned leadership and how we can be more effective with our, with those that we lead, that we know that that style is might work for a critical incident, but it doesn't work all the time. And I think we have to be smart about that, and then transition to the people centric piece of leadership when it's needed.
Do you think that empathy is a crucial leadership skill?
Absolutely, empathy is a crucial leadership skill. And in fact, um, in our right now we're developing a internal Castle Rock Police Leadership Institute, and
Mm,
it's based on our one by one policing philosophy. And one of the competencies that is in our leadership, that will be in our leadership institute, is empathy.
mm, I love it. Tell us a little bit more about the one by one. Break it down because we've mentioned it a few times. So I would really
Sure.
love if you kind of dove into what is the one by one philosophy.
Yeah. So our one by one philosophy is the vision of our police department. It's foundational to everything we do. It's our why. It's connected to pretty much everything that we do at Castle Rock. But it's about changing the mindset of serving a group of people or serving a community of people to serving individuals,
Mm,
and creating environments that are safe and secure where individuals can thrive. And when people first hear that, they may think that I'm only talking about the community, to where we're creating safe and secure environments for the community where they can thrive. And that's true, and taking an individual approach. But really, it starts internally, so it's from the inside out. And so, as leaders, we are committed to and responsible for creating environments that are safe and secure within our organization and serving our team members individually. So instead of serving a, um, a police department that has individuals as a group, we're looking at individuals themselves and serving them.
mm,
Because we know that when individuals in our organization, our team members can thrive, then they're best apt to serve the community when they're out in the community. And that safe and secure environment isn't just physical, it's also psychological. So the
mhm,
psychological safety is very, very important to us, because we know that, individuals need both physical and psychological safety so that they can thrive. And what we have found is that when we provide that type of environment and that culture for our team members, then when they're out in the community and they're serving the community, it automatically translates into how they serve. So
mm.
they don't have to think about, oh, I need to treat this person with dignity and respect because that's what I was taught. They are actually have been modeled that, and they live it and they feel it every single day. So it's just how they naturally go about doing business and serving community members.
I feel like you're speaking my language. There's a few things I want to dive into a little bit. So I completely agree with this idea of how can we support the individuals within an organization. I think previously it was always blanketed approaches, right? And we talk a lot, or at least I talk a lot about this. If we're going to recognize the human element of the people, right? You say the people a lot, and we're understanding that we're working with humans. We also have to understand that everyone has different life circumstances, different ways of learning, different needs within different times of their life and career. So those things are going to change over time, right? And so I think that if we can really try to dissect what does this specific person need right now at this point in their career and how can we facilitate that? I think that not only are you more effective in the things that you do, but there's more buy-in from the individual because now they feel valued as an individual, right? And so the messaging is so different. And I talk a lot to groups and we talk about this idea of, the person who's been in this career for 40 years might need different things and probably will need different things than someone who's just starting out in this career. Someone who's been in this career for a long time is going to have seen a lot more. Their body is going to feel different. There may be they have different goals that are closer to retirement, whereas someone who's fresh, maybe their body doesn't hurt, they haven't seen as many things, but they really want to advance. Their goal is career advancement, or maybe they just started a family. So I really like this idea of how can we focus on each individual, kind of determine what they need at that time in their career, and then how can we actually provide those things. I also really appreciate the emphasis on when you can take care of you, your product and the way you present yourself to other people is better. Right. And I have this experience too. And I actually had to learn this. And someone told me this. It was actually a mentor of mine, and it was really profound because I had shoved everything down for a really long time and I threw away the key and I wanted it to stay there. And I remember going through something where I was, I wouldn't say forced. Maybe at the time I maybe felt forced to maybe deal with some of this stuff. And I told my mentor, I said, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to take care of myself in that way. I don't want to do it. And he looked at me and he goes, Paige, if you don't want to sit with yourself, how can you expect anyone else to want to sit with you? And so it's this idea of like, if we want to be the best versions of ourselves and we want to present ourselves in the best way, we have to start with us. How can we love and care for other people if we can't love and care for ourselves?
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that there there we have amazing people in our organization like everybody does. And if you can find the way to ensure that they're getting what they need and you can tap into what their passion is and what their purpose is as individuals, um, they'll do amazing things. And it's about providing them that environment, and it's about having those conversations, and it's about having them understand that yes, we're here for you and we're going to provide what you need to thrive. And when you do, the results are simply amazing. I mean, we have a couple of our officers that were in a prior life, they were into skateboarding.
Mm.
And so both of them, who are now school resource officers, decided that, that's really a segment of the population in the juvenile population that we really don't connect with too well. I mean, just generally speaking, the skateboard kids don't always connect that well with the police just because they're in a different place. And so they decided to put this program together where they actually went out and got certified as instructors in skateboarding, and they designed and branded a skateboard with our logos on it, and they go out and they skate with the kids at our skateboard park, and they just go there and they just hang out and skateboard with them, connect with them. And but that was a passion for those guys, and they came up with this, what I call an innovative idea, because it's different, right? And we were fine with it. Hey, go run with it, go find out, what's it going to take to do this. But that's just an example of tapping into people's passions and then what results you get from it. And it was totally their idea and they ran with it. So it wasn't a top down thing. And it's just an example of when you can provide that creative environment for people of really what can happen. And then you multiply that times everybody within your organization. And I think the results can be very amazing.
Can you maybe dive? Because the question I think that popped up in my head, and I know we have a lot of leaders who are listening to this podcast too. If someone wanted to create something like this, if they're like, wow, I love what you're saying, I want to build that culture, what are those like tactical steps that someone could take to build something like this? What are those conversations that you guys are having to create a culture that's the one by one philosophy?
Well, I think that really it comes down to a few things. One of them is listening. So is really getting out there and listening to your team members.
Mm.
And those are, really individual conversations that can be smaller group conversations as well, but it's getting getting feedback and listening and then building the trust. And one of the things that we found as we transitioned our culture from what it looked like 14 years ago to what it looks like today was really about the listening part and then taking small actions um, to build trust. And when you listen and you can create trust within an organization with those that you lead, and then you reinforce those ideas, and then you message those, like this is what we want to do, this is the culture we're looking at. It's really it's something you have to work out every single day. But once you get there, it's kind of like that flywheel example in Good to Great, where that flywheel keeps moving, and once that flywheel goes, that your culture is it's on its way, and it's just a matter of reinforcing and doing the daily work on it. And I really do think it's just about creating, it's listening and creating trust and talking about what that culture looks like and then reinforcing it. And it's not easy. It takes time and effort, but it's well worth it in the long run.
Yeah, that's what popped in my head too. And it's interesting because it's free,
Yep.
right? Like there's a lot of things that cost money when it comes to wellness and programming and training and all the things. But in my head, it's like, yeah, it takes time and effort, but it doesn't cost you any money. So how can you build that foundation? Do you think, because I know, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, I know you guys have a really robust wellness program and things that you offer, but do you think that in order to have a robust wellness program, you have to first have that foundation?
You do. I really believe that if you just have programs or pieces out here, um, that's great, and you need those things. But really, it does come down to what the leaders voice and message as what's important, and then model that, right? So it isn't just about saying, oh, and pointing somebody, oh, we have this over here, you can go take advantage of it. It's actually about living it and modeling it for people. And I think that once you do that, and then people within an organization see that, oh, yeah, this is part of who we are. It's really embedded in the culture of our organization that wellness is important, that people are important to the leadership, and then when they see that, then and again that goes to the trust piece, but then that goes to that the whole idea that yeah, this isn't just lip service, this is really what's important to the organization, and they are providing these opportunities as part of that. But I do think it actually is culture, because for us it's embedded in what we do. It's just part of one piece of the culture that we have. And when individuals join our team and they see that, then um, they're already joining that wellness mindset when they from day one. We talk about it from day one. We talk about culture from day one. When we get new team members like this week, we have 5 that started that are going to the academy next week, and we spend the week prior to the academy going over just some things that they'll want to know. But I spend 2 hours with them talking about our one by one policing philosophy and talking about culture, so that they don't have to figure it out when they get in, that they're not starting from scratch, that they know that from the chief of police, this is what our one by one policing philosophy is all about, and that we as leaders value you, and here's what we want to do for you. We want to provide an environment where you can thrive, and that's giving them that from day one. And I think that as part of building culture, it starts on day one, right? It starts on what type of an experience do our newest team members have from day one? Because I think that when I look back on my experience and the experience of some others that I know from decades in the past, the experience that people had when they joined police departments, and it may still be true today at some places, maybe wasn't the best from day one. Maybe they were treated like the new person. We don't need to listen to your ideas or talk to you until you months. And I think that can have a negative impact on somebody's career, down the road, because if that's the culture and that's the type of climate that you are, put into from day one, then I do think that that can have some negative impact. So we really try to ensure that everyone knows from day one they're a valued team member with Castle Rock Police Department.
Yeah. I really believe that it's a lifestyle that we try to create, right? It's not, to your point, where you said it's not just a program. While programs can be useful and can be a resource for you, it's how do you create the mindset of wellness? How do you create the long-term piece of wellness? And it's a part of your life. It's what you do on a day-to-day basis, on a consistent basis to create that longevity and to thrive throughout your career and your life. So I really appreciate that you really kind of emphasize that this is what we're trying to ingrain. This is something that we just do, and this is who we are. Yes, we have programs, but we're creating a lifestyle and a culture of wellness from day one, even before day one. So I really like that. One of the things I wanted to kind of like circle back on, because you said this earlier, and I thought it was really interesting. We hear a lot about, ROI. I think a lot of times we get kind of caught up in numbers and, okay, well, what is the ROI if we're going to do this? And you said earlier, psychological and physical safety. Do you think that wellness is safety? And what is the ROI that you have seen as far as, performance, or that return on investment that you've seen, by implementing some of these things?
So yes, I do think that wellness is safety. Because it has so many benefits, right? And that wellness not only has a physical component to it, to where if you're physically fit and you're out serving the community and you need to get, you get into a physical confrontation that you're able to take care of yourself and others, right? So that there's that component of it. It also gives you confidence. And I think that when you can do your job and be confident of what you're doing, um, that's going to provide some psychological safety, and it also provides confidence for your colleagues who are working alongside of you.
Mm,
And we also know that physical safety is related to mental health, right? So if we're exercising and taking care of ourselves physically, we know that that has a benefit to our mental health as well. And we know that in our profession, stress is a major factor that we need to be considerate of. And so I do think that it is related to safety for sure, the wellness component. As far as the ROI, um, there are so many things related to ROI when it comes to wellness. I, don't know where to begin, but I don't think you could spend time putting numbers to that if you wanted to. But we know that for us, number one, it's definitely been a factor in recruitment,
mm,
because when people come to us, one of the things that they mentioned is that, hey, we've talked to your officers, we've gotten on your website, we know that you have that wellness is important. Retention's another one, because we do provide a number of opportunities that are wellness related, that not only are they programs, if you will, or opportunities that people can take advantage of that are beneficial, but they know that because we're doing this, it's part of who we are, and it's part of the culture, and it's part of us um, ensuring that they're getting what they need to thrive, and that we care for them, and that it's important, and that it's an investment in them. And
mm.
I think it's just part of the whole overall intentionality of what we do from a culture standpoint and from a wellness standpoint. It's all intertwined. I truly believe that.
Yeah. I've said to a lot of people, because I really believe this, and I think that you'll agree because of what you said earlier, but the ROI is the people, right? It's like that's the return on investment, is that you have happier, healthier, better employees within the organization that are thriving. And you've said that a couple times, thrive. Like, how do we get people to not just survive this career? How do we get them to thrive in this career, and after their career? How do they have a longer life after retirement? And I'm wondering how you feel, because, like I said before, we've come such a long way. And I do think, at least the people that talk to me, I think anyone who's listening to this podcast or who's on this podcast shares similar passions, for wellness. And so I talk to a lot of leadership across the country who are on board, and we are starting to see the stigma around wellness kind of go away, but I don't think we're completely there yet. Um, how do you think that we can start having conversations where wellness is seen as safety and something that's not just a nice to have, but a have to have? We talk about all of these other safety things that aren't even a question. When it comes to budget or implementation, it's like, we're doing this training because it's safety, no questions asked. We're going to have the best equipment because it's safety, no questions asked. But then when it comes to wellness, it's one of the first things that kind of gets cut from a budget or there isn't a budget for. So where do you see the future of wellness? And, how do you think we can start having those conversations where like wellness is something that's a non-negotiable?
Well, I think that's kind of what we're doing now. If you look at 20 years ago, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation.
100%.
Um, so I think that, the leaders that are coming through the ranks now have a really good understanding of that. I mean, and much better than we did years ago. And we know more, right? There's more research out there. I think we just live in a different world. Um, but to answer your question, I think that we we just need to keep the conversation going, and as leaders we need to put this up front and not be afraid to talk about it and stand up for it, just as much as we invest in our technology and our equipment. And I've always said that our profession has done a pretty good job of you know purchasing the right equipment to keep our officers safe. Like you said, it's non-negotiable, right? I mean, we need to have that top-notch equipment, the best technology and training. We've looked and invested in those things, but how much investment have we done in culture and wellness?
Mhm.
And I think that we're getting there now. We're starting to have these conversations. We're starting to build these things. And to me, it's just as important to invest in wellness as it is into the newest piece of equipment or technology. Because if you can have the best equipment and technology, you can buy that tomorrow, right? But if you're not taking care of the people who are actually utilizing it, then what good does that do, right? And I
Right.
think that's where I think we are moving in that direction. I can remember being on this was back in during COVID, and we had a virtual budget meeting with the community. And at the time, we were doing some experimentation with yoga for first responders,
Yep.
and I mentioned it, and somebody who was on the call, basically said, "I can't believe you're wasting your time and money on that." And it's like, I'm sorry, but I don't agree with you. It's very important for our officers from, both a physical and psychological safety to provide them these types of opportunities. And, I mean, so sometimes you have to just take a leadership position and say, no, this is important. And as the chief, I believe in this and I want to invest in it. So I think it's just staying true to that and staying on course and keep that messaging going about why it's important. And I think as we move forward, we'll see more and more leaders embrace that, and I think the community will eventually come to expect that. And when you see that, um, we'll be there. But it's like Simon Sinek talks about, the early adopters, and maybe right now we're kind of in the early adopting phase, right? But eventually we're going to get to where it's going to be the middle of that curve, and we're going to see a flip, and it's just going to be an expectation for
Right.
police departments. Just like now, it's expected that police departments provide A, B, C, and D for police officers and professional staff. We're going to get to the point, and I don't think it's going to be that much further in the future where it's going to be expectation that we provide um, very very good wellness programs that are holistic and that are built into the culture.
Yeah. I had someone say to me, and it was pretty much exactly what you just said. They said, what good is having a really good drone program if you don't have anyone to fly the drones? And it was like,
Yep.
duh, right? So I agree with you. I've said this before on the podcast. I have a prediction that I don't even know if, and this might be like, 5, 10 years. I think that wellness will just be training. Like I think that the two of them will come together and it's a part of training. Like you said, it's really normal. It's to be expected. It's just a part of what you do. there isn't ever this conversation of like, oh, it's woo woo or why do we do this? It's like that's just what we do, just like you do firearms training, and you stay consistent with that. I think it's going to be the same. It's like, oh, we do this because that's what we do. That's a part of our training.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, maybe there's some things that we can do. I'm optimistic that maybe it's going to help happen sooner than later. If you look at what's happened with technology,
Mm,
with drones as first responders, for example, I mean, that's really, taken off just in the last 6 months
mhm.
to a year. And there's no reason why that level of adoption can't happen with wellness.
Yeah.
So there are, like IECP has a wellness conference now, which is really grown very fast. So I think that there's a lot of promise out there, and so I think it might happen quicker than we think, but we all have to, do our piece to ensure that it does happen.
Yeah. And, speaking of, kind of having the conversation and keeping it moving, you teach this. You travel around, you are spreading the conversation. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you get started, being, I said it in your bio, but a nationally recognized speaker and presenter, and what does that look like?
Well, it all started with as we basically took our culture that existed prior to 14 years ago, and we started changing it because really it was a very traditional culture for a police department that, quite honestly, wasn't providing the best environment for team members, and so we just started really improving that and making it more modern
Mm,
and changing the culture. And then Simon Sinek wrote about us in his book, The Infinite Game,
mhm,
as an example of how culture and building trusting teams can really improve working environments and how people serve others. So that that provided an opportunity for me to share our experience with other police professionals and even the private sector as well. So we've even had private sector folks want to hear about our story and talk about what we did and maybe how they could implement some things. Because really, it isn't just about policing; it's about people
mm,
and building healthy cultures and creating environments where people can thrive isn't a police thing, it's a people thing. It's like anybody could benefit from that. But it just so happens that in our profession, it actually, I think, is so important because if you look at the private sector, if they don't have a culture where people thrive, or if it's not a good working environment, then yeah, maybe they don't perform that well. Maybe people don't get bonuses or whatever that looks like. But in policing, when we don't get culture right and we don't get, creating these environments right, lives are literally on the line. And the lives of our police officers and professional staff and the lives of the community we serve. So there's a lot at stake. And that's why I'm so passionate about it and trying to find ways to share our stories so that we can, as a profession, move forward in building the best cultures and best climates possible so that we can provide these structures for our police officers and professional staff to you know to ensure that our communities are safe because that's what it's all about.
yeah, I appreciate you saying like that's your why. Like that's why you're so passionate about what you do. Uh, how important do you think it is that every person connects with their why, whether that's a professional why, a wellness why, to keep things moving forward? Do you think that that's important and that's something that's helped you to keep driving things forward in a positive way?
I do. I think that when you can tap into your why, into what drives you and your purpose and your passion, then it's like you hear the old adage that if you find something that you love to do, then you never work a day in your life, and
Right.
that's no, that's so true. But it's kind of, I go back to the example of the officers and the skateboard example. I mean, that really, to them, it's providing that environment and something different to connect with the kids.
Mm,
And they did, and I don't think they thought that was work, right? I mean, they're so proud of what they did and they really enjoy it, that if people can tap into that individually, then not only are they going to be happier and individuals, but then when they work with organizations, then if, the synergy that comes out of that, if everybody is doing their purpose and working that direction, then again, incredible things happen. And it doesn't take much effort because people are doing what they love.
Yeah. I think that our why is really underused and undervalued sometimes. I have to connect with my why a lot. I think that anyone who can relate to going through peaks and valleys in life or in your career, I think it's so important to try to have that self-assessment and identify, whether you're a leader or you're brand new in the profession, one, like, why do you do what you do? Why? There has to be a reason why you do what you do and why you keep getting up to do what you do, right? Because life can be hard, work can be hard, especially for you guys in law enforcement. Your careers are extremely challenging. So there has to be a reason why you're in this career. And I do think that whys change over time, and but then I also think that there's a wellness why. Why is it important for you to be well? And I think that you have to really understand why it's important, and it could be the safety of your community and your team and yourself. It could be your family so that you can show up as the best version, of yourself for your kids and your spouse. It could be, advancement or retirement. There's so many different reasons why wellness is important. But I think if we're going back to that individuality of wellness and understanding that everyone's going to maybe have a different intrinsic driving motivator, I always try to encourage everybody periodically to tap back into your why. Why do you do what you do professionally? And why is it important for you to be physically and mentally well? And then use those as the motivators to get through the hard times.
Yes, and you're right. There are hard times, no matter where you are, what you're doing. And so the ability to tap into that, and it's like, okay, yesterday was a tough day, but why, what's my purpose? Why, what's my why? And I think when you can reflect on that, it kind of can take you back. It's like, okay, we all have bad days, we all have tough days, but now I need to refocus on really what my why is, and on who I'm serving and what does that look like. Because you know, if we don't take care of ourselves and ensure that we're in a good place, then it's very difficult for us to lead others and help others along, no matter what position we're in, right? So I do think that's so important. And then for us, not only do we have the individual why, but then I go back to our one by one policing, which is like, okay, we're having a as an organization, that's our why, right? So then when we make decisions, and sometimes, we're making some pretty difficult decisions, maybe it's a personnel issue, or maybe it's, what direction we need to go on this. We always bring it back to our vision and our one by one policing. It's like, okay, well, uh, is it consistent with that? Is it consistent about
Mm.
serving individuals? Is it consistent with ensuring we're creating environments where people are safe and secure and where they can thrive? So even as an organization, it helps us to go back to the why and ensure that we are aligned with that.
I like that a lot because it also helps to create a team environment too. How are we operating individually, but how is that also impacting the team? And as a team, are we aligned and moving things forward? So I like that a lot. I don't think that I really touched on this, and you just reminded me, you guys have a leadership academy or training that you're starting, and you said empathy was one of like the key components to that. Maybe tell us a little bit about this. Who's invited? What are
Yeah,
the what are the key learning objectives and what does that look like?
yeah. So we're still developing it, but we are targeting end of March to have this launch. But it's again I go back to our one by one policing. It's a leadership institute that it's focused on our one by one policing philosophy, and it's about developing leaders that will be consistent with that philosophy. And so like our last couple of promotional processes, we identified eight competencies, empathy being one of them, leadership, and cultural advocacy and administrative courage, things like that. Emotional intelligence is another piece of it. So we took these 8 competencies and we are developing a leadership institute that surrounds that. So not only does it develop individuals and teach them about why it's important as leaders, but it also is very consistent about who we are, right? So it's for our current leaders and it's for aspiring leaders, those who aspire to move into leadership roles. So if you think about it, if we are evaluating individuals as we for promotion on these competencies, this Leadership Institute is actually going to help give them the development, training, and tools and experience that align with those. So as we move forward down the road, and for promoting people that are aligned with our values, then they have already gone through some of these that had gone through the Leadership Institute and learned these things so that they are better prepared as leaders as we move forward. So it's all about being aligned, being consistent, everything that is going to be, again, in aligned with our culture and our values. So we we're excited about it, and we were looking for something that was maybe a little bit outside the norm on a typical leadership institute, that it it offers a little bit more than a basic, well, here's what leadership looks like. It's really very much people centric and very much centric to what we believe in. So that's coming, and we're real excited about it. One way that it's structured is that it's structured with what we call like a passport system,
Mm.
so that it isn't something you go to for a week or for 4 days. It could be done throughout the year, and then as you check off the areas of the classes and what we're offering, then at the end, when you check off all those boxes and gone through everything, then we'll give you the certificate. But some of it's self-study. So some of it includes doing an emotional intelligence assessment, a 360 assessment, getting feedback from your peers and people that you've worked for in leadership positions. It includes a book club with books from Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last, The Infinite Game, Bob Chapman's book, and Will Guidara's book, Unreasonable Hospitality. So it's got just a number of things that are kind of that we identify that are important to us. So again, we're excited to launch it off, and I think it's going to be one of those pieces that when we look back on in a few years is going to be have a lot of positive outcomes as far as an organization and keeping us aligned and developing leaders internally.
I have a lot of conversations with a lot of leadership, and this is the first time I've heard something like this. So it's really refreshing to hear kind of the out of the box thinking of how can we make things better? How can we do things differently? How can we develop people in an effective way for the future? It's really funny. I was just having a conversation about kind of like the pillars of wellness. And we have the basic pillars of wellness that everyone talks about, right? It's, mental, physical, spiritual, nutritional, financial. And I think that there are a lot more than we talk about or maybe realize. And one of the things I was just talking about was this pillar of personal and professional development and how that impacts overall wellness, because it's fulfilling to feel like you're developing yourself both personally and professionally. And I think that that does help you both physically and mentally for your wellness. It all kind of ties together. So it's really interesting that you guys are really focusing on how can we develop people personally and professionally. And I've had a lot of conversations over the years with teams who do not have a leadership team that's aligned on the mission or aligned with
Mhm.
wellness and what that does to the organization. So for you guys to have a focus on how do we get all of our current and aspiring leaders to be on the same page and to serve the same mission within the organization, it's only going to help move things forward in the future because we know that when it's not that way, what that looks like.
Yeah, I think that alignment is extremely important, and it's something that we've worked on pretty diligently the last few years, just within the command staff, kind of our smaller group. And that's one of the things that is next is that we're pushing that alignment out so
Mm,
that we can be aligned all the way up and down
yeah.
the chain because it's so important. If you think about it, if first of all, if you don't have alignment at the command level, then that's a problem, right? Because it's so splintered. But even if you're aligned at the command level, but you're not aligned all the way down into the first line supervisor level, then there's disconnection. There's messaging that's not consistent, and then really that's where rubber meets the road is the individuals that the first line supervisor are leading. So that's why having total alignment is so important
Yeah.
when it comes to that. One of the you talked about the different pillars of wellness. We have 8 dimensions, so it's pretty broad. And so one of our dimensions is intellectual wellness,
Wow.
and which speaks to your development, both professional and personal development. So whether it's social, physical, spiritual, even financial, and so all these wellness pieces come together. So I think that being broad in our mindset when it comes to wellness is very important.
Yeah, and you used the word holistic earlier, which I also appreciated. Yeah, I agree with you. I've had a lot of conversations where, we're talking about wellness and, the conversation is like, yes, we're on board as an agency. But to get this one sergeant or these three sergeants to get on board with doing something is going to be a hurdle. And so, to your point, like, how can you create that consistency so that everyone's on the same page? Because it is hard when you have that difference in messaging, from person to person. So I appreciate your focus on that. I know we're kind of button up on time here, so I have a final question for you, and it's a two-part question. So my first question for you is, what words of wisdom would you share with leadership? Maybe current leadership or aspiring leadership. Something that you've learned along the way that you feel like is really important when it comes to leadership.
Well, this probably won't come as any surprise, but it really is to be people centric in your leadership philosophy. Is focus on those that you are responsible of caring for, and I think if you do that, then most everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah, love it. And then my second two-part of the question is for the younger generation. And this is maybe more of a wellness words of wisdom. What wisdom would you share with someone who's earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier or something that's helped you along the way.
I would say to make wellness part of who you are and what you do every day, and make it a habit early on. So if you can start a ritual of wellness, no matter what that is for you, it can be anything, right? I mean, everyone has their own um, ideas or what they enjoy wellness related. Just make it a habit. It's something that is important to you that you're going to do, because if you start that early on in your career, then I was fortunate to have done that early on, just because of I played sports when I was younger, so I've always been involved in wellness. And 40 years later, it's just automatic. It's something I do every day. Um, if you don't do that and you wait until later in life to do it, it's much more difficult. So start early, be consistent, and then it'll just become part of your ritual, and it will pay dividends physically and mentally over the course of your career.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I completely agree. I think dedication over motivation, consistency wins every time. And it's
Hmm.
easier to stay fit than to get fit.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for your time and jumping on here with me today to talk about wellness and leadership. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paige. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Of course.